Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. Got a special Friday afternoon edition. Normally, I do a weekly show with Bashar from 49er Minded, but Bashar went to the game last night. I don't even know if Bashar's home yet, to be honest. It sounded like he was must have stayed up all night partying, celebrating that big win from the home opener at Levi's over the Giants. So Bashar, looking forward to catching up with you next week. But I'm super excited to have Brian Renick on the show, B Renick 77. I've got Anshul Shah of the Shah Show, and I'm gonna have to update the banner because I've got Gina on there and Steph. Well, maybe they'll make it. I'll add, but I definitely need to add Gene, who is at Buck What You Heard on Twitter, and you can find everyone's. I did get everybody's information in the description of the show of the various YouTube channels and
Steph's backstage.
Steph is. Oh, perfect. There we go. There's Steph now. Hey, Steph, how are you?
Hey, Ted. How's it going? Hey, everyone.
Hey,
I
Steph.
was just introducing people. You obviously probably know Brian and Anshul from 49ers YouTube, but Gene, you may not know to your on the right as you look at the screen. He's Buck What You Heard. He's a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and also coincidentally a John Lynch fan. And anyway, welcome everybody, and let's kick things off. I think what we should do real quick is just like we're streaming to multiple channels. So whoever's channels you're on, if you could go to the description and go like and subscribe to everybody in the description, that'd be really helpful. If you're on a browser, you can open up multiple tabs, watch all at once, just turn the volume down on all but one, but that way we can get more views. Obviously a big win for the 49ers last night, and we'll dive right in on that soon. But real quick, I want to just call out some of the audience members that are here because I do want to make sure that we show folks that way. If people are in different channels, they don't feel like they're missing out. So we got Donald Johnson in the house. Hey, Ted, what's up, Donald? We got Alberto Soto. We got Silly Fungi. He's a Rams fan, but he's pretty cool. He also usually drops some cool dad jokes, and as a lot of you may know,
I say his username is a dad joke. It's Silly Fun Guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I said fungi. I always say fungi, and I get it wrong. That's one of my dad jokes. Is Mushroom walks into a bar, and the bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve mushrooms." He says, "Come on, I'm a fun guy." So anyway, Silly is a cool Rams fan. It's hard to believe there are some. They actually have some good content creators too. Zach from Payo Time is a real good person to have on if you guys ever want to dabble with Rams content creators. Real quick, James Dernall coming to us from across the pond. And like I said, I'll try and show most. Looks like you did some winning. That's awesome. So, as far as, the game last night, we can dive right in. I also, while Gene's here, I just want to congratulate the Bucks. They're 2-0. It's pretty interesting, the NFC South as well, too, with the Saints being 2-0, the Falcons being 2-0. I mean, who had that on their bingo card for this 2023 season to have three NFC South teams be 2-0 at this point?
Yeah, well, you got to consider it's still overreaction week. So the first 3 weeks of the season, I do call overreaction weeks, where people are trying to figure out, if a team is really good or if they're not. I tend to look after game 5, game 6, when you kind of get an idea of what you really have, and you can kind of put together game film and get an idea of what your team's going to look like based on tendencies and behaviors. So this is fun. I'm enjoying this as a fan. I'm enjoying the wins, but at the same time, cautiously optimistic.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought the Saints were going to be good. But yeah, I was a little surprised. I feel like the Falcons did a lot of work in the offseason. I just don't know if I trust Desmond Ritter. That is their quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. No? Yeah?
No,
okay,
yeah,
you don't trust
I
him.
don't trust him.
Yeah, I felt like they were a QB away. But let's go around the room and talk about thoughts about the game last night and anything that's on your mind, honestly. I want to start with Steph. Go ahead, Gene.
It was a very good game. What I'm really impressed with is how balanced the San Francisco 49ers are, whether it's special teams, defense, and offense. I think the team is very well coached. And, this is a good start out the gate. And you have a tough division, to be honest, and a lot of people kind of disregard teams like the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals, but they do at times give certain teams problems. But just the way everybody's playing, from Christian McCaffrey to Purdy to your defense, how solid the defense is looking. At times, bend don't break. We saw a little bit of that. And again, if they can continue on this trajectory, man, they're just they're a lock for the playoffs. And from there, all bets are off.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought in the first half it was a kind of an ugly game, from at least from the offense, by their standards. All right. Like I just want to say that by the standards that we've become accustomed to, and maybe we're a little spoiled. I think there were some misses from Brock early that I'm sure he would have liked to have back as well. I understand the Giants were blitzing the hell out of him. So, respect to him and Kyle for making the adjustments to then later in the game have an answer for it. And they carved him up in the second half. So, credit to them. That's the beauty of this team, right? That they can win so many different ways. I think through this short season already, through 3 games, we've already seen that they can beat you more ways than one. And Brock doesn't need to be perfect. Like, that's a crazy thing. There's still improvements that he can make, and yet they're putting up 30 points 3 games in a row. Like, that's pretty incredible. So once those little things get clicking, and mind you, like, it's not just Brock who was maybe didn't have the greatest game, but like penalties were also a thing in this one too, that I think, early on kept the Giants into it maybe more than they should have been. But they'll clean those things up as the season progresses. And I think this team's very dangerous because they're already beating teams pretty handily. And once they get all those things clicking, it's going to look even better. So.
Yeah, our friend Splash Cousin said it best on Twitter last night. The 49ers slept walked to a 30-point performance, right? Like, you watch that game, and I know as I was watching that game, it never felt like the 49ers were dominating until you actually looked at the raw stats from the game, and you realize that they held that Giants offense to 151 total yards. The 49ers had more yards in yak than the Giants offense had in total offense. So you look at that and you go, oh wait, no, that is a dominating performance. They really did kick the shit out of this team, even though 30-12 doesn't look like a dominating performance. And that was kind of my biggest takeaway was, people are going to compare this performance against the Giants to the Cowboys' performance against the Giants in week 1, largely because the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Eagles are the class of the NFC as it currently stands. And while 40-0 looks more impressive, and I agree, and I'm not taking any thing away from the Cowboys and their victory, but 14 of those points, 7 came on a pick 6, or 6 came on a pick 6, and then another touchdown was a blocked field goal. And so that Dallas offense actually only scored 26 against the the Giants defense, whereas the 49ers put 30 on them. And then obviously the Cowboys defense shut out the Giants. They had Saquon Barkley, they had Andrew Thomas. So you could argue that's a more impressive defensive performance, although the 49ers did allow less total yards to the Giants than the Cowboys did. But largely this is in my opinion, an equally dominant performance, and just another indication that, again, the 49ers are one of the class teams of the NFC, and I don't really think you could argue that they aren't.
Yeah, I feel like definitely slow start, but that's kind of what the Niners are, I feel like, known for, is that they really end up clicking into the second half of games where they do end up starting slow, but it would be nice if they could start also fast in the first half, because I definitely feel like just overall in these first 3 weeks, they've definitely left some points on the board. Really impressive to see how they did on third downs. They converted on so many like 3rd and 15s. I think Kyle Shanahan did a fantastic job of calling the game when it actually came to those third and longs, and I feel like um, defensively, definitely, I think looked better than in the Rams game because we were just getting torched in that Rams game. I feel like we were getting a little bit torched in the first half against the Giants, but I still don't think anywhere close to the Rams game because I don't think they had a single receiver even have over 100 yards because obviously they only had like 150 yards of offense, but really dominant home opening performance and really happy with how the team performed.
There you
If
go.
I could,
What?
if I could jump in here
What?
real
Go
quick,
ahead, Gina.
I really like the coaching staff and the way they're able to make adjustments. Everybody talks about the first half and how the first half went. I like that they came in, they made adjustments, they looked at where they were deficient at. The coaching staff was able to make adjustments, and the players went out and executed. And I think that's huge when you're able to respond like that and put on a dominant second half performance the way they did. It's a testament to the players and to the coaching staff.
I think when Kyle Shanahan puts his script together and just thinks about the first half of any football game, it's largely a fact-finding mission for him. He is calling plays so that he can better understand how the defense is going to respond to different formations, different pre-snap motions, and things of that nature. And so, I think they start slow in terms of not scoring points simply because at the end of the day, their goal, I mean, if they score, great, but for Kyle Shanahan, the most information he can get is going to be what he prefers out of those first, I would say, one or two drives. And which is why, again, largely they don't score a lot in the first quarter. And then I think Steve Wilkes is very similar in that, in the first half, the defense will come out and they'll play a lot of vanilla schematically, right? They're gonna see what their D-line can do against that offensive line. They're gonna play a lot of zone, and they're gonna see what happens. And if the opposing offense starts picking apart those zones and the defensive line isn't getting home, like in the first half against the Rams, then they make adjustments in the second half and they come out with more pressure looks. They come out with different coverages in the back end. And so, I think this is just the MO of this team. And, there are going to be games where the opponent is an inferior opponent and they come out and just look incredible in the first half and then just bleed the clock in the second half. And there are going to be times where it looks like they might be getting tested in the first half and then come out and just absolutely dominate in the second half. So, again, it's just kind of the way that they coach. And I think it's really bearing itself out so far the first 3 games of the season.
No doubt about it. Those are all good points. I would say we talked a little bit about the Cowboys there. Just want to say prayers up for Trayvon Diggs. He tore his ACL in practice on Thursday. That's obviously tragic anytime the league loses a premier talent like that for the season. Obviously as a 49ers fan, you want every advantage you can have against a top team like the Cowboys. But as an NFL fan, you really want to see the best game possible and really know that your team is the best it can be and that you've passed a real test. So sad to see that. Obviously sad to see Saquon Barkley injured. Obviously that's not season ending. But there were quite a few Giants injured coming into that game. Their left tackle, another one of their offensive linemen besides their left tackle, and then Azeez Ojulari, who's a pretty good pass rushing edge player. And then they sustained a lot of injuries during the game too, and you can kind of see their D start to wither a little bit with all the injuries that they got. I was just a little surprised with Brock Purdy because, we talk a lot about, his decision making and how he makes all these great decisions. And, Kyle Brandt had the thing on Good Morning Football where he was saying he's like AI, he's artificial intelligence. he's the Purdinator or the Purdinator. And then all of a sudden he's like, we got Kittle and Debo playing defensive back to break up would-be interceptions, but he was sort of struggled early, was kind of mid in the middle, and then in the end, he was so good. I mean, obviously the great, TD throw to Debo, the one that got away to CMC that probably should have been a touchdown. And I even liked the one to Ronnie Bell, and there were quite a few others that weren't necessarily scoring plays. But there were a couple of things besides the would-be picks that scared me. There were a couple where Debo got clotheslined that I, live tweeted as dangerous throws. I wouldn't call them hospital balls the way Jimmy does, where he got them so high, but definitely left Debo exposed a couple times, maybe more like the Rams game a little bit in the NFC Championship game. But yeah, I mean, so happy to be 3-0, to have scored 30 points in all 3 games. How weird is that? To have the exact same score in all 3 games. That's pretty highly unusual, I'd say.
It's only happened 2 other times in NFL history. One was in like 1933, and then the other one was, I think, the 2007 Patriots. And so now, kind of the record book there.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely would have liked to seen there was a time in the game where I was a little bit nervous when it was, I guess it was 17-6, and they punted the ball deep to us, and we had an illegal block in the back, and it gave us the ball. I think it was the 4-yard line. We did nothing with it and punted, and they got the ball midfield. And I turned to my dad. I'm like, they're going to score a touchdown right here. And sure enough, they did. And all of a sudden it was 17-12, only a 5-point lead. And I was just so happy that we got a field goal there to go back up by 8. But plays like that, series like that are where games can swing. I think it's probably unlikely that the Giants were going to run away with it, even if we didn't score right there. But I was definitely a little more nervous than I thought I would be coming into that game, especially with all their injuries.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, but at the same time, it's a Thursday night football game, so I think it's kind of par for the course on, teams just coming in a little sloppy. And as for the 49ers, I think it did give the Giants some comfort in that early going of the game where, they were still kind of in it. But good teams shut that down, and they find a way to shut that down. And I think we saw that in this game. The defense, which we haven't really talked a whole lot about to this point, the defense played an incredible game. And that's in a game where I think, it was safe to say we were cautious about what Daniel Jones can do with his legs. And I thought they did a great job of keeping him inside the pocket and getting him from, scurrying out of the pocket and outside to pick up some yardage. So that really didn't gash them. And all the pressure that they had, especially in the interior of the defensive line, I think really benefited to, Daniel Jones looking how he did, which was he was making errant throws. He just looked all discombobulated. The entire Giants offense did. So I think that was an incredible performance from the defense that afforded the offense, getting into red zone territory and not coming away with 7 points, right? And credit to Moody as well, because he's been nails through 3 straight games. But yeah, I think the defense really kept them in it, and once the offense got going, they were able to put this one away.
I wanted to ask you guys a real quick question, because I was not expecting this to be a very fighting kind of game in terms of just physicality, because I mean it's not a divisional game. I want to know your guys' opinion on Trent Williams just fighting, and do you think he kind of went overboard? Because I've never really feel like I've seen that with the Niners. I wouldn't have been surprised if he got ejected. I was actually kind of surprised that he didn't.
He probably should have gotten ejected for that one.
Probably,
I mean,
yeah.
But this is the same Trent who punched Richard Sherman in the face after a game as well. So he could have a temper if you test him. It could have been. It was dumb, all right? It was and it could have hurt the 49ers, I think. They got fortunate that he didn't end up getting ejected for that one. And I thought it was pretty funny, his reaction to it after the game. He was just it was just a love tap. It didn't really hurt. So I thought that was kind of funny. You could laugh it off because they came away with the win and he didn't get ejected. But yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to see that in a game and, risk hurting the team in those scenarios, especially in what was, I don't remember what the score was at that point, but the Giants, I think, were still in it at that point. So it could have hurt the 49ers.
Absolutely. And we saw that in the NFC Championship game. Trent got in a scuffle there too, more recently. So No doubt about it. I know Gene has to get going here before too long. So Gene, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the Bucks as far as like Baker and things like that. Like, I know you're kind of in a wait and see mode, but do you feel pretty, upbeat that you guys might make the playoffs this year, or how you feeling?
I think the NFC South is wide open. Again, it's still early in the season. I like what you've seen from Baker Mayfield. No turnovers, taking care of the ball. Getting the ball downfield to his receivers. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin have really benefited from the play of Baker Mayfield. I like his decision making so far, and I think in the simplified Dave Canales offense, I think he's really thriving in it because there's just it's not like a Bruce Arians offense where it's super intricate. But again, so far so good. Cautiously optimistic, and if you can build that up and continue to see film, I think that definitely the Bucks will be in a position to compete for that NFC title that they've won the last few seasons.
Do you feel like Baker Mayfield is ruining an opportunity for you guys to draft a franchise quarterback, or do you feel like he might be the guy to hit your wagon to moving forward?
I think the strength of this team is the defense. And when you have a guy, our defense was atrocious last year. I'm not in defense, but offense, atrocious last year. We had a horrible offensive coordinator. Thank goodness he's gone. And you've got a guy who's kind of brought life into this, and he's getting confidence from the head coach, giving confidence to the head coach to make certain play calls that you didn't see last year. So I'm happy with the progress. Again, if he can stay on this trajectory, I think he's somebody you want to re-sign. But he is showing his value right off the bat with some of the plays, making plays with his legs, impromptu plays with shovel passes, and just finding guys that are open and not putting too much on himself to put this team in a bad situation. If they can't get that first down, they are kicking the ball the other side, and depending on their defense. So as long as they're doing their job, I'm excited about it. And yeah, to answer your question, I think if he plays all season like he's played these first two games, I think he's somebody that you look to re-sign and bring back in, somebody that's familiar with this offensive coordinator. I'm not big on the whole tanking thing. I've never been a real fan of it. I know when the Bucks got Jameis Winston back in 2015, 2014, there was a lot of talk of tanking at that point, but again, I think that you kind of do a disservice to the fans, season ticket holders, and people that are coming to the games. I think you go out and play to the best of your ability. If your general manager is not good enough to draft where he's placed, like I don't know if you're number 7 or number 19, wherever he's placed, getting the best player on the board that complements your team, that's what you want to do. And I think that shines a bad light on a general manager if a team tries to tank.
Yeah, I mean, as far as tanking goes, I would just say, I always say top, organizations don't tank. And it's winning isn't a light switch. You can turn it off, but a lot of times when you go to flip it to turn it back on, it doesn't come on. And a lot of times you lose a lot of top talent. In the meantime, they say, hey, I don't need to be around for this. Trade me somewhere else or let me walk. So yeah, I'm with you there 100%. Real quick, Dean, as far as your defense goes, I saw a list where they had Vita Vea as number 10 overall for defensive tackle. I thought that was kind of low for him. I kind of feel like he might be more like top 5-ish. Where do you have him as like a ranking defensive tackles?
I hate power rankings, and I hate rankings, whether Pro Football Focus I do use, but it's as a tool to use with game film. So, if they have him in 10, I guess, you got to look at who they've played. And, again, he's going to only get better. I think you look at a body of work at the end of the season, not so much during the season, to get an idea. I like what he's doing right now. I like that he's playing consistent, and, he's a space eater. When you have to double team this guy, and that gives opportunities to everybody else along that line. Like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Shaq Barrett. These guys have benefited from Vita Vea doing what he does, and he has so many intangibles that you can't really put stats on, and you kind of have to wait till the end of the season to evaluate how his game was.
Right on. That makes sense. Then obviously you guys have Levante David, Devin. It's White, right?
Devin White, correct?
Devin White, the linebacker. Winfield, the safety. So many good corners in Tampa too. So, I think I can see why defense would drive that. I was just sad to see that you guys' center.
Ryan Jensen.
Ryan Jensen, that because he came back last season at the end of the season, played a little bit, and then I guess it was just too much, and I think he called it quits for the career. So I was sorry to see that for sure. He was one of the better centers in the league for sure.
Yeah, he's doing a lot with the offensive line as far as coaching and helping to get them up to speed, and you can kind of see it. That was the biggest question mark going into the season, even in the preseason, what this O-line was going to look like. And, they've performed better than I expected. So I'm really happy with the progress that they're making. And I believe they'll continue to make progress as the season progresses.
Nice. Outstanding. So should we circle back a little bit more to the game last night, or do you want to talk
real quick? Cause I have to dip, but I did want to ask about Dre Greenlaw. How serious was his ankle injury?
Sure.
They're saying it's just a mild lower ankle sprain.
Okay.
He and
Demetrius Flanagan.
Yes, yeah, those two.
They're day to day.
Okay.
Yep, and then I know Debo seems like he's gonna be okay, but he's like still kind of day to day.
Yeah, they thought it was rib fractures, but I guess he's okay.
Yeah, because he came back negative.
You could tell that Debo was in pain last night because he did not celebrate that touchdown at all.
Yeah, he just
and I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on? He just like caught it, turned around, and like started walking back, and I was like, that guy's in pain for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. When he went down, I thought it was maybe his left arm that kind of broke his fall. But then it looked more like wind knocked out of him. But then that could be oblique or ribs for sure.
I know he's also had that issues in the past too, where it's just going after a long run and just fighting his way through, that happened. So, I mean, I was like a little bit worried because obviously he was down for still a while, but also wasn't super concerned because, again, it's happened in the past. So it's at least good that he's gonna be fine.
Reminded me a little bit of when Bosa went down in that playoff game against Minnesota and was down for a while and then popped up and the entire crowd just went nuts and he kind of like fed into it and was like, yeah. I was like, okay.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm sorry. I have to dip real quick. But thank you so much for having me on. It was really nice meeting everybody. I hope that when the Bucks do play the Niners, that we can all link up again. I'd like to really enjoy your stuff here. So I'll definitely be following everybody on the list here and checking out your content because I don't really deal with the mainstream. I'd rather deal with a podcast. I think a lot more people are invested in it. And I'm always down to support a podcast over, what you're seeing on TV. I think that's BS. So it's just my opinion. But you guys have a good one.
Keep it real, Gene. Thanks, Gene.
Have a great one.
Appreciate you coming by. On the subject of Dre Greenlaw, I would just say, when he got that penalty last night, I feel like there have been a couple Dre Greenlaw penalties recently where I was just saying, this is like a reputation penalty. Like what he did didn't seem that bad, but he's got this reputation now for cleaning off piles and things like that. I don't know. Do you guys think he deserved that penalty last night, or there was another one recently too, or was I right saying it's a reputation call?
I think it was definitely a reputation call. I think the refs probably have like his picture up in the league office and like, remember this guy. He's a
wanted.
Keep an eye out.
They've got a wanted poster in the office.
No, really. I mean, that's kind of how it feels. Like if there's anything close to it being like a legit penalty, they'll just call it because he does have that history. I thought the one last night was very ticky-tacky. I didn't even think I heard a whistle before he did make contact. So, yeah, that seemed a little excessive. But
And it kind of dates back to the Charger game when he got ejected for going helmet to helmet with Herbert, when really Herbert was being tackled by Jimmy Ward, and it kind of affected his trajectory. Dre wasn't targeting his head; it just ended up that way. I felt like.
And honestly, like calls like that are going to continue to happen until the NFL actually does take it seriously and do something about the officiating and what that would look like as an eye in the sky, which they have in like almost every other major sport, right? Where you've got a ref that is watching from the sky and can call down and be like, hey, you missed this, or hey, that wasn't the case. But the NFL has never taken it seriously. They've never even discussed something like that. And I mean, take that for what it is. I think there are reasons. And, you know, I don't tend to be much of a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, one way to affect outcomes of games is if you're not doing what you need to do to hold your refs accountable. So, but I mean, Dre Greenlaw is good for a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty at least once every 3 games. So, you know, he got one last night, and, you know, he'll get one here soon again. It's just, you know, honestly, I think for the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, it's kind of like you have to accept that if you want him to play the way that he does, which is with his hair on fire. And if he does play that way, which is what makes him great, then you're going to have to take some of those warts, which largely tend to be, you know, unnecessary roughness penalties or late hit out of bounds penalties and things like that. Because that's just kind of the player that he is. It doesn't mean he's dirty. It just he's all gas, no brakes, just like Robert Saleh used to say. And that's going to happen. So it just is what it is.
Late hit out of bounds takes me back to Chicago week 1, but I don't want to talk about that. So, oh man,
I want to know because, like, the thing also is with this is more about to do with the defense, but I feel like Steve Wilkes needs to adjust, like, to end the first half, because I feel like he always ends up waiting till the second half. Because I mean, that's what 3 games in a row where we've given up some points to end the first half. Like, I really hope that, because I feel like if we're gonna be playing a better team, let's say we're down and we let that happen, I feel like that's gonna be able to affect us. So I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I mean,
think
You know, go ahead, Steph.
No, I was gonna say, I think he's still getting used to this personnel, right, of the 49ers. And also, like, I think the challenge with him coming in and, you know, the 49ers pretty much saying, like, don't change too much because it's not broke. So, you know, don't try to fix it, is like him trying to figure out, okay, so what does work? What can I sort of adjust where it's needed? And so I kind of feel like through these 3 games, it's been kind of weird where you are seeing those, like, and Brian alluded to it earlier, like those vanilla starts from like the defense. And then you kind of adjust from there. So I would expect that it improves as the season, you know, goes on. It's been 3 games,
Yep.
so I think it's gotten better with each game. And like I said, I thought the defense played great yesterday. I certainly feel like there were some adjustments even from like game 2 that carried over into game 3, right? Different teams you're going up against, so that certainly factors into it. But overall, yeah, I think it's just adjusting and getting used to, you know, coaching this 49ers defense.
One of the things I've really liked from Wilkes, and it has allowed a kind of a renaissance of Javon Kinlaw, is one way that he is bringing extra pressure is instead of blitzing a linebacker, they are employing a 5-man line where it's Eric Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Javon Kinlaw, and then Bosa and Drake Jackson on obvious passing downs. And it's been really, really effective. In fact, after last night's game, Javon Hargrave and Javon Kinlaw lead the league in QB pressures at 10. Now, obviously, you know, no other team has played outside of the Giants, so that will change. And then Nick Bosa is right behind them with 9. So that's one change that I've really enjoyed. And like I said, I think Javon Kinlaw has been the big benefactor of that. But yeah, like I said, D'Amico Ryans, one of the things I loved about D'Amico was his halftime adjustments. And, it really feels like Wilkes has kind of taken up that mantle as well. And, I think he's also getting used to calling a defense where he's not blitzing a lot. Cause when he's been in charge of a defense, he's been a heavy blitzer, and that doesn't really work for this team because when you blitz, you're typically blitzing either, your nickel corner or one of your linebackers. Well, in San Francisco, Fred Warner is quite literally the best coverage linebacker maybe in the history of the NFL, and he erases the middle of the field. If you're blitzing him, you're really kind of putting your defense at a disadvantage. So I think he's finding ways to adapt, and one of the ways that he's done that is with the five-man front, which I mean is going across the league as well. It's not like he's reinventing the wheel, but it's been effective, and like I said, it's been a huge renaissance for Kinlaw, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see Kinlaw doing well after struggling for so long with injury and just not getting playing time. He was so dominant in camp. I mean, I feel like Ayuk was the best player in camp, and Kinlaw was maybe the second best player. And it's just really good to see that translate to the regular season. I said, if he could stay healthy, I could see him being our best rotational D-line player. And now, as Brian mentions, in a 5-man D-line, he's not even rotational. He's a 5-man. He's a 5th starter. So that is pretty cool and kind of interesting too. Then I guess then you're kind of playing almost like a 3-4 defense at that point, where you're only going to have 2 middle linebackers or an extra DB or some way to compensate for that. But normally with 4 D linemen, we would normally you would have a nickel corner, I guess, instead. But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I believe when they bring that 5-man line out, it is 5 down linemen, Fred Warner at linebacker, and then 6 DBs, and then some or Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, and then 5 DBs.
Yeah, it'd be 5-1-5.
So,
yeah, one linebacker.
Yeah,
very cool. As far as other things from the game, I mean, I thought it was pretty interesting just to see, we talked a little bit about the yak. I think there's some differing numbers. I saw Nick Wagner say we had 201 yards of yak. I saw someone else say ESPN Next Gen Stats was saying it was 210 yards of yak. But either way, it's some lofty percentages of yak compared to sort of like run. So we had 441 total yards in the game, the 49ers, and 215 were yak according to one, or 201 on another. But it's, about 48% was yak, almost half of our yards. The rushing yardage was about 30%, 29.7. And then the air yards was about 21. And so, and people said, well, hey, Ted, the Giants were blitzing a lot. So of course, screens are going to be the way to defeat that. And I do agree with that, of course. I just don't think many teams have the ability to screen to, Debo, CMC, and Kittle, 3 of the best yak players over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they also invented, right? The Yak Bros is not a name that was created, outside of the 49ers. It literally was created by, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, and then of course Brandon Ayuk now. But yeah, the Niners do it definitely better than anyone, and they've led the league the past few years too, which isn't super surprising. But it's like everybody's like, oh, the Niners, Purdy's dink and dunk because of that, and it's like Purdy. I mean, he still goes downfield, right? He had that touchdown to Debo Samuel. That was a pretty deep ball. So, like you said, Ted, the Giants are blitzing most of the time, so you had to have those screens involved in this game to defeat those blitzes.
Yeah, I think they needed to get the ball out quickly in this one. I think that's one of the adjustments they made after they realized how often they were going to face the blitz in this one. I'm trying to find the time to throw. I know it was like
2.3.
Yeah, I was like Brock's fastest, right? That he's
Yeah.
ever
Yep.
he's ever had. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that tells you right there. I think that was one of the better adjustments that they made in order to beat the blitz, and so it ended up working. And you have guys who, as Shaw said, they're known for that, right? So I think Brock really just had to become a facilitator at that point. Not to take away anything that he did, because I think down the stretch, and certainly, that touchdown pass to Debo was great too. I think that one might have been his longest by air yards, based on what I saw, if I'm not mistaken. So
Because it was a corner route from the opposite hash.
Yeah, so it was 27 yards, but it was air yards made it more. So yeah, so after all the talk about the deep ball and some of those misses, it seems like Brock's getting a little more comfortable with at least those back shoulder throws to the front corner of the end zone. So I do love to see that. But yeah, they made the adjustments. They did what worked in this game, and that's what you have to do to be able to win games. And going back to my point earlier, this team could beat you in so many ways. Okay, you're going to do that. We're going to do this. Like, they could go back and forth all day, because that's how talented this team is and how many weapons they have on offense.
Brock Purdy was blitzed on 84.6% of his dropbacks, or 33 of the 39 times that he dropped back, which is the highest blitz rate a quarterback has faced in the next gen stats era, which goes back 10 years. So literally the Giants blitzed more in this game than any team ever has against any other team in the NFL in the last 10 years. And Purdy started out slow against it. He was 5 of 11. And you think about, like, that was when everyone's like freaking out, right? And I think part of it was the 49ers weren't necessarily prepared for that. You don't prepare for that. You can't be prepared for a blitz rate that high, because it doesn't normally happen. And so it took not only Brock but Kyle a little bit of time before they could figure out, all right, what are we going to do to counteract this? And so I think Kyle did a great job in dialing up a lot of that quick game, where it became, swing passes and bubble screens and quick slants and things like that, not only to defeat the blitz, but also to get Purdy back in rhythm, because he started off really slowly. And then, he ended his night, 20 of 23 against the blitz. So, obviously and to me, that is Purdy's biggest asset, is his unflappability. Not only is no moment too big for him, and he proved that Thursday night in Seattle when they won the division. He proved that against the Cowboys in the in the wild card round. Proved it against the Cowboys in the divisional round, against the Seahawks in the wild card round. And I think he would have proved it against the Eagles had he not been injured. And so I love that about him, but even more than that, he doesn't allow his own poor performances to take him out of the game. And so again, he starts 5 of 11 and ends 20 of 23. That takes mental toughness, right? And that takes moxie, and that takes, just an inherent belief in yourself and the team around you. And Brock doesn't do anything that's going to take the offense out of its rhythm. He is going to do what the defense dictates needs to be done, and that is going to be based on the plays that Kyle Shanahan is calling. And so, I mean, at this point, I tweeted it out last night. I said, I don't know. Like, I mean, at this point, it's hard to argue that he isn't the real deal. And are we 11 games in? Absolutely. Is there still room for regression? Sure. But nothing that he's doing to me seems like smoke and mirrors. Nothing that he's doing is something where another defensive coordinator can take it away, right? Like, what is a defensive coordinator going to do? Like, what can they do outside of what the Giants just did, which is blitz the shit out of him, 84%? Outside of that, what is another defensive coordinator going to do that could rattle this kid? And I'd argue there's nothing. So, at this point, he runs Kyle's offense to the best of its ability. better than anybody that Kyle's had in his entire tenure here, including Jimmy Garoppolo, because what he offers that Jimmy didn't, and last night was a perfect example. His pocket awareness and mobility is incredible, and his footwork is incredible. And you watch his throw to George Kittle where he has pressure coming off the right side. He takes 3 steps to the left to give himself like half a second and then layers the ball into the intermediate part of the field to George Kittle on an out route. The almost touchdown to CMC, the touchdown to Ronnie Bell, and the touchdown to Debo. All of those were in the face of pressure. He was able to evade the pressure and get the throw off. Both touchdown passes were falling backwards. And it's he's just, like I said, I can't find any fault right now in the way that he's playing to say, hey, this is where we might have trouble. Did he make some poor decisions in that first drive? Absolutely. Did he have 3 turnover-worthy plays, turnover-worthy throws? Absolutely. By the way, one of my favorite things was George Kittle batting that pass down and then doing the DB seatbelt celebration that every DB does when they get a pass breakup. I was like, God, I love that guy. He's so great. But yeah, and then I see it in here, and Purdy has taken the crown from Jimmy Garoppolo. Dude is lights out on the QB sneak. So yeah, this offense, it's like I said earlier, they sleptwalked. I don't know how to say that past tense, to 30 points against a defense that is probably going to finish between like 10 and 20 in total defensive efficiency. So, not one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They hung 30 on the Steelers in Pittsburgh in week 1. They hung 30 on the Rams, who have Aaron Donald. Their big test is going to come week 5 against the Cowboys, and Trayvon Diggs is out. But, at this point, like I said, I haven't had this level of confidence in a 49ers team in I don't know how long. And it's just fun. It's just fun to be a fan right now.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen anything like definitive from Brock Purdy. Like the great thing about him is if he's struggling, if he misses a throw, it doesn't carry over to the next throw.
Yep.
Like you were mentioning, Brian. And also he has a bad drive. It doesn't carry on to the next drive. You know what I mean? That was maybe one of the things with Jimmy Garoppolo that is somewhat different. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo was more or less who he was always going to be, like during his tenure with the 49ers. Like he was kind of already like who he was and what he was going to be. Brock Purdy only has so many like starts at this point that you look at what he's been able to do, even the things he's not able to do, and you think to yourself, he can improve. Like that's crazy. But he can improve, and I think he has the intangibles to improve as well, and that's really important to have in a quarterback. So I agree. He's operating this offense a way we've never seen a quarterback do it under Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, and it's been just enough, like to take this team to, I think, just the slightly different tier, that I think makes them Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah,
Steph, who's our fourth guest? Who's the fourth guest?
This is Simba.
Nice.
Yeah, to me, I just feel like because I'm only like 21, so I haven't even seen us win the Super Bowl. So to me, like this has probably been the best quarterback play I feel like I've seen. So to me, I just feel like the Niners have it this year. And again, I know it's only 3 games so far, but it's been the best quarterback that I've seen, like I said. And just Purdy has that it factor. Every week, I'm just like, when do I think he's going to mess up? And it's just, I don't see it like every single week. I just see something new that just is shocking to me. I mean, I feel like we didn't really see too many deep throws last year, when he did play before he was hurt. And it's really surprising to see that he's doing that this year. But I think it's also good because now you don't, you get rid of that kind of like one dimension. Well, because I feel like if you didn't have those deep throws, you're going to be one dimensional. So now you're making the defenses think a little bit more, and they can't just watch the film and like, all right, we gotta guard the short to mid game because Brock Purdy has at times shown that he can throw deep. So definitely feeling something about this team this year. I think they can for sure win it all this year.
Kyle Shanahan wants to go deep. If you look at that offense that he ran in Atlanta with Matt Ryan, not Matt Ryan, Kyle Shanahan wants to go deep. That is one of his goals, is to dial up shot plays at least once, twice, 3 times a game. The problem is he hasn't had a quarterback who either was A, willing to do it, or B, able to do it. And, Brock Purdy is showing that he is willing. And I think we're going to see here shortly that he's going to start hitting a lot of those throws. The takeaway I took from the Rams game where he had those 3 overthrows was, I was just grateful they were overthrows, right? Like my biggest concern was, where's his arm strength after surgery? Because his arm strength is largely what, one of the knocks against him. And so if he was missing those short, it's like, there's nothing, what do you do? Right? You can't do anything about that. You can't give him a stronger arm. But the fact that they were long just is more about just experience, right? Getting a little more loft under the ball. And the other thing, I think if you watch those throws, you can see him muscle up all 3 throws, because I think he thought to himself, I don't know if my arm has it or not. And so, the fact that he did, I think that's a mental note that he's going to make and be like, all right, I don't have to muscle up as much because I do have, the arm strength that I had prior. And I am, I am able to make those throws. And, I don't know if you guys read the Matt Barrows article in The Athletic. I think it was last week, but he was talking about, and this is why I love it. He was talking about Brock Purdy's thighs, and he asked Nick Bosa about him, and Nick Bosa was like, yeah, he's in the club, meaning like, yeah, Purdy's got some pretty big quads. He's thick in the lower half, if you will, like Debo, like Bosa. Bosa's thick everywhere. Let's be perfectly honest. The guy's a specimen, but one of the things that Barrows was talking about in that article is for people who throw, like throwers of the football, if they have more muscular lower half, they tend to throw from their toes, which lowers their accuracy. And so one of the things that he learned to do prior to the draft was to throw with a flat-footed base, because that allows you, it's like a baseball swing. You want to push your momentum through the ground and then use the ground to increase your rotational force, which is, how you get more on the ball. And he actually increased his velocity by like 5 miles an hour. So I think he's still getting used to throwing that way. He's still getting used to what his body and his arm feels like after surgery. And I think he's just going to grow into it, and you're going to start seeing him hit those, and you're going to start seeing Kyle Shanahan dial him up more.
Yeah, in the breakdown of Brock Purdy's game last week at the QB school, he did bring up like Purdy's base and just like how strong it is. On at least one of those throws, I think he had like pressure coming towards him, and he had to kind of reset, and he didn't reset his base like quite as strong as he had it before. So that could have been why at least one of those sailed. But yeah, he's eventually going to hit those, right? And we mentioned the touchdown to Debo in yesterday's game. So again, like, he's just scratching the surface of what he can do. You look at something that he makes a mistake on, it's not an overall indictment on him. It's not who he is. It's just, he made that mistake. He's going to work on it, and we'll see if he can improve on that. And right now, I'd put my money on him improving on it, right? Because
for sure.
I think he's a really smart quarterback. I think that's another thing that to me sets him apart from Jimmy. Not that Jimmy's not like a smart guy, but the processing and how I didn't say it, all right? But the processing of Brock Purdy, and I think like him and Kyle think the same way. And that really helps this offense as well. So, it wasn't the ideal start to the game we would have liked to see from Purdy, but like, again, we see the adjustments, and we can just, I think, hang our hat on him continuing to improve as a quarterback.
Yeah, I was really happy to see Purdy improve just because, I had some doubts. I had some doubts from camp. In the 9 camp practices I attended, all the open ones, pretty much every deep ball Purdy threw was short or long. Brian, I do take a little bit, I don't want to say exception, but I disagree a little bit about his arm strength being back. I think it's still coming back. I expect it to come back as the season progresses. But a lot of times QBs who lack arm strength do overthrow long balls because it's all or nothing. They're just like, do I throw it as hard as I can? They don't have a lot of touch on those deep balls, the way guys with big arms like Mahomes or a Herbert or a Josh Allen, even Aaron Rodgers, where they can just kind of flick it and send it anywhere they want on the field. They have a lot more control that way. But yeah, I mean, I was super happy to see that, especially after the Rams game where he was kind of 1 for 3 from deep and didn't throw any deep balls against the Steelers, didn't throw any deep ones in the preseason, didn't throw any TDs in the preseason. I was complaining that he didn't throw any TDs against the Rams, but if I'm being mean to Purdy, which a lot of people feel like I am, I just feel like I'm being honest with some concerns. But a lot of them went away last night. I will say that, and I'll say against the Rams, there was one throw that was a TD to Debo against the Rams. It just was behind, it wasn't a forward pass, so it didn't count as a touchdown throw. But you got to give Purdy a little credit there. He hit him nicely so that he could make everything. Debo could make everything he could down the left sideline on that one. And then obviously the one to CMC last night that was dropped, so that was really nice. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bullish on Purdy based on what I saw last night. Obviously, I'd like to see against a better defense, or even the Giants staying healthy more would convince me more. But I've been calling him mid a lot this season and getting a lot of grief for that. But I was kind of saying I'm seeing more like mid plus now. I'm seeing like 10ish instead of 15ish for Purdy. So
I would argue 10 to 15 is not mid, right? Mid is 16 to 20 or whatever. And
I was saying 14 to 18 before, and so now I'm more like in that 11 to 15. Maybe.
And I would and I agree with you. I would put Purdy in the 10 to 15 range right now, just through week 3, especially with Rodgers gone for the season. Maybe there's 11 guys that I would be like, yeah, probably. So maybe I'd have Purdy at 12, but he's rising, and that's all you can ask for.
Randy says I'm a big bully. Well, I just have strong opinions, and if I think somebody's a box score scout or casual, I'm going to tell them. Also, Steve-O brought up a point about the doctor. I had Dr. Nirav Pandya on, and he said that he would be surprised if Purdy was ready to play before week 3, and he meant like 100%. And I still don't think Purdy's 100%, so I'm still defending Dr. Pandya, especially if we think Purdy really only looked like the closest he's looked to 2022 in maybe the last quarter and a half of last night's game. That's week 3. So I'm going to go ahead and defend Dr. Pandya on that. I think we're still seeing him improve. I expect to see Purdy improve, his arm strength improve throughout the season. And I think that's probably part of why he started slow last night. Was it's a short week, so not as much rest as he's used to for the arm. Beyond the Giants blitzing a ton, obviously.
Yeah, and every recovery is going to be different based on the patient, right? So Dr. Pandya is just giving what would be the medical opinion, and if Purdy beat that, then that's more about Purdy than it is about the prediction. But
there was another doctor too, Dr. Jesse Morse, the fantasy doctor, came on.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say week 3, but he said he'd be surprised if Purdy was ready week 1. Now, this was all right around the time of the surgery, so way before he got cleared to play and all that, so early. But just interesting to see. And ultimately, with this injury, we all know it's still only Nick Mullins and Purdy who have had this UCL repair plus internal brace as NFL quarterbacks. So it's a very limited data set, and it's hard to make any sweeping judgments on what can, will, should happen to anybody who has this.
And let's not front. Brock Purdy has a much stronger arm than Nick Mullins. So
yes,
there is that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No, and those throws he was making were they impressed me. I will say, and so it gives me hope that he can do everything that we need enough for us to win. I mean, I've already been on record as saying that I thought, even with him being a little bit limited, that we could win it all with Purdy. I feel like everybody has to be healthy. Obviously, we saw last night without Ayuk, it works. One that got me though, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was I think Thursday morning. Jack Hammer tweeted something about, oh, this talk about Ayuk being out being fine reminds me of Bosa being out for the Atlanta game in 2022. And I was just like, dude, come on, Ayuk is not Bosa. Let's start with that, right? And then there was a bunch of defenders out besides Bosa, but it's not just the quality, not just that Bosa is a more impactful player than Ayuk, and I don't think anybody would argue otherwise. It's also who's next, right? Like in 2022, the next DNs we had, anyone on the D-line, nobody on the D-line had more than 5 sacks in 2022. And so, I think that if Kittle had been out, we'd feel it a lot more than Ayuk being out, because we got Ray, we got Ronnie Bell, we pulled up Chris Conley from the practice squad, who had a great camp. I don't think we saw much of him, but I have a little faith in Chris Conley. I thought he might make the roster. But whereas, you go from Kittle to like Warner, Dwelly, maybe Braden Willis, it's a huge drop off compared to Ray, or as we saw, Ronnie Bell filled in very nicely.
I loved Ronnie Bell's game last night. I thought that was awesome.
First catch, first touchdown.
And I mean, just the blocks that he's doing too. That's why he's also gotten more opportunities, because obviously no block, no rock, and so.
That was the first thing I tweeted when I saw that Ayuk was out. Schefter's report. I was like, good, rest him, and maybe we'll get to see some Ronnie Bell. And then about 20 minutes later, Jeff Deeney said that Bell had been taking all of Ayuk's reps in practice. And I was like, please, Kyle, don't pull a rookie red shirt. Let the boy play. We need to see what he can do.
And I think Ronnie Bell gets to play as a rookie because he blocks his ass off, and that's all that Kyle Shanahan expects out of his wide receivers.
Special teams
if they'll do that, then they'll see the field. But that's also that touchdown to Ronnie Bell is again just a testament to this 49ers front office, and specifically, I would argue, rather than John Lynch, I'm gonna sing Adam Peters praises right here. 7th round quarterback to 7th round wide receiver for a touchdown. How often does that happen in the NFL? I'd venture to say very, 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 very rarely.
No doubt about it. Real quick, should I call Aaron, 49ers First Takes? He does First and Ted with me every Wednesday at 3:30. Great guy. We had also I want to call it McNiner, Dave McNew in the house too. But Randy said we could win it all with Sam, you guys. Kyle is friggin' amazeballs. I mean, I agree with the second half of that statement. Anyone here think we could win it all with Sam Darnold?
I mean, maybe he'll look better in the regular season because he would be going against the first, but also I don't know. I definitely was, a guy that was hoping at least Trey Lance would have got in the second spot if it wasn't going to be the first. So I don't know. I'm praying we just don't have to see Sam Darnold.
Other than what we saw, like garbage time, victory formation.
Yeah, other than him just kneeling it down.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I saw, what we all saw in the preseason and like in camp, I don't think so, but not that he can't improve throughout the year. But yeah, I also don't want to see it. But Ted, I do have to bounce.
Thanks, Steph,
I gotta
for coming.
prep for my show, but I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
What time are you going? You going live at 5?
5:30.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't bleed in. Not like we have a ton of people watching, but I want to make sure.
No, I was gonna do it with Lori Fitzpatrick today. She couldn't, so it might just be me. We'll see.
Okay, no danger of us spilling into that, but I always like to be respectful. If I can end early and send people your way, I always try and do things like that. So
right on. Thanks, Ted.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming, Steph.
Have a good Friday. Have a good weekend. Peace, guys.
We'll talk with you.
Peace, Steph. Even no reach around, no score. Jeez. And I think Randy was joking. He said Ted almost took the bait. But Brian, were you going to chime in about Sam Darnold? I don't know if we got your thoughts on him.
I will. I was gonna say I got to drop in 3. I said 4:40, so I got to drop in 3 minutes. But
okay, fair.
Do I think the 49ers could win the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold? All things basically where the only difference is Sam Darnold at quarterback, but everybody else is healthy. I absolutely do, because again, it's Kyle Shanahan operating Sam Darnold in the, within the context of his offense. And, I think Darnold's biggest weakness is his decision making, which has been better since being with the 49ers. And I think that's largely because Kyle Shanahan schemes guys wide open. It's hard to mess up in this offense. You can, obviously, and Jimmy has, and Brock has, everybody does, but no, I definitely think all things remaining the same, the only difference being that Brock is out and Sam is in. I definitely think that they could win the Super Bowl because, again, we're talking about a team sport, right? And that's where I think some of this talk with Brock Purdy and, well, if you drop Brock Purdy on, this team or this team, would he succeed? And it's like, I don't know. I think he would, because I think a lot of what he's good at would translate to other places. But ultimately, do I care? No. Why? Because he's the quarterback of the 49ers, and he has to operate the 49ers offense. And so far, all he's shown is that he can operate it at the highest level we've seen since Kyle Shanahan has been here. So, does that mean that Sam can do it? No. But, this defense would still be ferocious. He'd still have CMC. He'd still have Kittle. He'd still have Debo. He'd still have Ayuk. It's not Sam Darnold versus Patrick Mahomes. It's not Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes. It's, Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy versus the Chiefs defense or the Chargers defense or the, whoever it is that they're going to face in the Super Bowl. So ultimately, do I think so? Sure. Do I want that to happen? No, because that means that Brock goes down, and I don't want to see that. So, but yeah, I'm not afraid of Sam Darnold coming in like a lot of people are, just because I have a lot more faith in Kyle Shanahan and the talent around him than anything else. It's not necessarily a reflection on my confidence in Sam, but more my confidence in the team.
There you go. Yeah, and for me, I don't trust Sam Darnold. Just something when I saw in camp, like everybody was calling Purdy, not everyone, but like Ryan Hensley called Purdy dink and dunk. But I really felt like in camp, it was Sam Darnold that was dink and dunk. He barely threw an interception to almost the end of camp. I felt like he wasn't pushing it at all. I think we could win some games. I don't think we could win the Super Bowl with them. But hey, I hope you're right and I'm wrong, Brian, if it comes to that. We got.
I just hope it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, exactly. We got Brent Culp in the house. He says he believes he ran into Sam Darnold. There was 2 people wearing number 14, Sam area. Said either that or 2 biggest fans. Yeah, I mean, come on. This is family, of course. I mean,
gotta be the family. I really doubt it'd be like...
Yeah, the backup QB. Or are there Jets fans or something? I don't know. Jets fans really take up for Darnold. I see him on Twitter for sure. That's funny as heck.
Listen,
but Brian,
listen,
what did you do to Bash yesterday, man? He Bashar, supposed to be here on with me, and I don't think he even made it home from the game back to Roseville. But I know you got to run, Brian. So don't.
Yeah.
Don't feel
but
shy.
I was gonna say before I go.
Yeah, go.
Anybody doubting the grandson of a guy named Dick Hammer, I feel like is making a mistake, and that is the name of Sam Darnold's maternal grandfather. He was a Marlboro man, so I think Sam has it in him, guys. I think he does. But
there you
hopefully
go.
we don't have to. Hopefully we don't have to see.
That's what I've heard so far. Thanks for coming, Brian.
All
Appreciate it.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me on. Later.
Yeah, anytime. So, and then James Durnall coming to us from across the pond says Sam can step on a Lego once they're first. So F that guy. Oh, that's tough. Yeah, as a father of young children, the stepping on a Lego, that is real and that is painful. Especially, you're like wandering around at night, like I don't want to turn on a light. And you're like, oh, I wish I'd turned the light on. Oh, that was just not smart. But here, as long as we're just the 2 of us, Anshul, just the 2 of us, let's go to the overlay here. But yeah, let's go through some of the comments. I mean, I'm not mad at Darnold. I guess I am. It's not his fault, but I'm mad at Kyle that Darnold is our backup QB. I thought it should have been. Well, we all know who, and I'm not trying not to bring him up. So, let's try and move on. I tell people on the timeline he's gone. No need to keep bringing him up. So I'm going to try and follow my own advice. He's talking to James. There we go. Sam is a big dude. Don't poke the ginger.
Otherwise, also Brad won't be happy.
Yeah. Oh boy, that's true. That's true. No foot is safe. Oh man, those things are amazingly painful for sure. So Anshul, what else should we talk about? Should we talk a little bit? Well, Bryant Culp's here. Let's talk a little bit about Jake Moody. I think he's 8 for 8 on the season. Hasn't missed a kick or a PAT that I'm aware of after struggling. Bryant Culp likes to say kickers are people too.
Nope.
If you watch his show on his overlay, he's got Jake Moody on all 4 corners of his overlay. So,
pretty
Brian,
sure I also saw him wearing a Jake Moody jersey yesterday. Like,
there you
I saw
go.
the photos at the game. So
I'm sure he must be real happy that his protege and pick is doing well, for sure.
yeah, no, but it's great to see that he's doing well so far. I just think it was preseason jitters. It's just that rookie kind of like the lights might have been a little bit too bright for him, just because it was like preseason. But luckily, it was preseason. So
Steve-O's asking if he got an O in my kid's name. No, unfortunately, I tried, Steve-O. I lobbied hard, but my first son is named after me, and so I had to let my wife go with this one. I mean, if you get to pick one child that your wife bears, I mean, let's face it, we the part we have to do is pretty easy compared to what the women have to go through for us. So no, I didn't get an O in his first name, sadly. Randy says he's perfect. I think he's talking about something else. I think he's talking about James Durnall. This is being a dark man. Money Moody for a reason. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like to call him that just because I call Mitch Wishnowsky that, and Mitch Wishnowsky's been on the team longer, so I have to come with a nickname now for Moody because Money Mitch is the nickname I have for Mitch Wishnowsky.
There you go. I just call him Wish. We got Tony from the Locker Room Rant. He's on with John Vornis, and they have a great show. He said you can bring him if you want. If you bring him up if you want to, it's your show. There you go. No, I'm just trying to lead by example. I'm trying not to be hypocritical. But yeah, all right. Of course, I'd rather have Trey Lance as a backup quarterback than Sam Darnold. I just think he's much better and not done growing. I mean, I think he's going to continue to get better and better. And I think we know what Darnold is. So just hopefully Kyle made the right choice if it does come down to that. I hear the little guy is up from his nap. So our time may be running short.
Okay, but no, it's okay. It's all good.
We'll get through these if we can here, though. He says, I'm glad I'm eating my words. Moody isn't duty. Yeah, I might have said that once or twice, too. So, Bryant, cover your ears.
I would say I definitely wasn't one of those people, but also I've been talking with Brian a lot, too, because I've gone on, like, the shows with him and No Border Sports, like, on Friday nights, but yeah, I that's why I don't take preseason a whole lot because those games don't count. I don't really care if, a player does bad during that, and at least it's good that he's hitting everything else right now. So
they haven't all looked great, but they've all gone through, and that's the most important thing for sure. So yeah, apologies, Bryant, if I said Moody is duty at all. I think it was only once or twice. I wasn't like leading the chants or anything. It was more like I was repeating it. But even then, come on, I gotta take responsibility for my own actions and not blame someone who instigates something. So Bryant says 36 points, most scored points, MVP. There you go. Forget CMC MVP. It's Moody for the league, not just for the Niners. That's an interesting thing that we didn't really get to talk about yet in the show was with CMC and the overuse question. I was even titling some of my shows this week, "Are we overusing CMC?" And I was so glad to see Kyle use Elijah Mitchell when the game was in being played, and then also Mason when it was kind of
Over, yeah.
it was Darnold to Mason, I think 3 times for the last first down. Not passing, but just handing off to Mason 3 times to ice the game. So we could just do victory formation. But did you think we were overusing CMC before that?
I know people have that concern because of the injury history, but I just also think Mitchell, and I said the same thing about George Kittle. It's like those two guys were hurt in camp. When you're hurt in camp, like especially during training camp, where it's not like they have to learn the new playbook because obviously they've been here for a while, but just being in shape, being in football shape, is different than just being in shape. So I think that's what kind of it was. So I think that we'll now just see um, Mitchell more throughout the like weeks. So I'm not really concerned.
That's a good point because we brought it up a lot for Bosa not being in game shape because of holding out, but because Mitchell was injured a lot during the offseason and the preseason. He had to work himself into game shape. I hadn't even thought of that. And great point, Anshul.
And I also feel like, we use CMC quite a bit in the passing game, which obviously he gets hit, but it's still better than, him constantly getting hit while running. So that also helps.
There you go. Tony saying yes, we were overusing CMC. I was glad to see Mitchell and Mason. Yeah, same here. It was a real concern with Kyle. Just he's paranoid. I think after losing the Super Bowl to the Patriots. Granted, he wasn't the head coach, but still the 28-3 in Atlanta, and then obviously the Super Bowl 54 with us, losing to the Chiefs. I think those have scarred him. Even the Rams in the NFC Championship game when the Rams went on to win the Super Bowl, we had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter there too. So, I can kind of see why he does it, but at the same time, I'm like, Kyle, get the starters out, man. The game's over. Like, let's not get Debo or CMC or Trent Williams or Purdy or any of these guys injured. Kyle even got Sam up there with the victory snap. Yeah, there was 3 handoffs and a victory snap at least for Sam Darnold, at least 4 plays.
What do you feel about the extensions that were announced today?
I mean, I've been saying that Kyle has to win a Super Bowl this year, or I'm going to be unhappy with him.
But why clearly, to get your thoughts, because
clearly no one else cares. Jed, the guy who counts, the guy who signs the checks, is just like, hey, that's good. We're minting money. I think we're the most profitable team in the NFL, or at least through ticket sales we are. There's at least some metric where the 49ers are the highest revenue team in the NFL. So as an owner, that's what you care about the most. But I think Jed also cares quite a bit about winning, and that's nice because some owners just, want to maximize profits and they don't care what kind of product they put out on the field. So, I'm happy. I think Shanahan's great. I think I'm a Shanahan fan. I think he's a genius. In the offseason, I was getting after him for QB decisions and every 3rd round pick not named Fred, but now Moody is looking good. So at least there's another. So maybe I could say Fred and Moody if Moody keeps this up. The QB thing, though, that's TBD. We got to see how the season ends up. And God forbid, Anshul, that somehow Trey Lance becomes a starter in Dallas and they knock us out of the playoffs. Man, it's my doomsday scenario for sure. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, I was kind of shocked that it happened during the season, to be honest. But I'm also not surprised in terms of they got an extension because we haven't won the Super Bowl, and I think when you seen John Lynch speak about it, I mean that's what his mind's on too, because he wants that Super Bowl. That's why they're also just spending the money, willing to spend. And obviously they have Jed York, who's also willing to do that too. So honestly, I'm not mad about it. But do you know how long the extension was for?
It hasn't been released. Okay. I think they were already signed through 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, at least 2025, and so which would be this season, next season, the season after. So I would imagine at least 4 or 5 years after that would be my thought. So locking them down. I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
Rick says we have different roles at the line of scrimmage. It's too early for that. Everybody has their opinion. That's true. And I have strong opinions, but I'm open to hearing. I always want to hear other people's opinions. If you think I'm spreading bad info, be sure and tell me. Last thing I ever want to do is spread bad information, for sure.
Exactly why we have this platform, right?
No doubt.
Everybody gives their opinions. So.
Yeah, someone was saying to scout the Cards and Cowboys this weekend. I don't know about the Cards. I'm not sure that they're not tanking for Caleb, honestly. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, they definitely, kept it close. They had a big lead against the Giants, but they did end up letting.
But also, we're not the Giants, so I think.
No, we're not.
We'll be fine.
Not even close. James says the only game I'm interested in is the Steelers versus Raiders, but it's the 1 a.m. game. He's over in the UK.
Okay.
So if we work back, that would be the 5 p.m. game here. So it must be Sunday Night Football or Monday night. Rick says my friends take 1 week at a time. There you go. Just, manageable chunks so it doesn't become overwhelming. That's the trick. Steelers says, Rainey says Steelers will hurt James. I hope not. I never root for injuries, but Jimmy G is certainly injury prone. So we'll see. Somebody was saying earlier in the show, and I don't know if anybody saw it or what, that Jimmy has the fewest 3-and-outs in the league or something like that. Or were they saying that about us? Because I think we had one last week against the Rams, and that was the Niners' first 3-and-out of the season. Well, granted, it's only 2 games in, but we essentially went through the Steelers game with no 3-and-outs, and maybe a quarter or a half of the Rams game, it seemed like.
Mm-hmm.
Vikings versus Chargers. See what team chokes.
I'd take the Chargers. I just think they also have a new OC, so that could take some time just to get rolling. But I definitely would think the Chargers win that game. But yeah, I
agree, Randy. It's good to know your enemies before you play them. Scout them in advance. They say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So, yeah, keep an eye on the Seahawks, the Cowboys, the Eagles, whoever's coming up. But those are some big ones for me. I'd say the Jags, the Ravens, and Bengals are the other ones on my list for this season that I'm keeping an eye on. Although I guess Joe Burrow may not play. He hasn't been practicing this week, I don't think. Again. So the Bengals maybe a little weaker this year than we thought. Tony says I'm going to have to put Fire Kyle back on the back burner due to the extension.
It's insane.
Luckily, I never said Fire Kyle. I did offer up an idea because people were like, oh, well, if we don't win the Super Bowl and you're like, switch and say you're mad at Kyle now, or, you're ready to fire him, who would you replace him with? And I was like, Coach Prime. I'm like, I like him. I also like Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. I think he's pretty good. He had that offense humming last year. But, I mean, Kyle's great. He's a genius. I just want to see him get QB right, and maybe he did. Purdy was starting to look like it last night. I will say that. I was starting to eat my words for sure. Rick says 2025. Okay, so
yeah, okay, that sounded about right to me.
Yeah. Why scout the? Oh no, Cowboys! I'll tell you what. Before Trayvon Diggs went down, I thought they might be our equal or damn close, or maybe even a better team than us. The Cowboys are legit. I'm pretty sure, folks. They probably still
Cowboys are always a great regular season team.
No doubt. But we are getting close to 5:00, and that is my witching hour. And we've been on an hour and a half here on Shoal. So just want to say thank you for joining. Everybody, make sure you check out Anshul's Shaw Show on YouTube, and then also the Shaw Show on Twitter as well too. Give him a like, give him a subscribe, give him a follow, all those good things. And thanks to the audience members. You guys have been great today. And it's fun just putting together a different type of show. I almost always do one-on-one shows, but when I realized that we had some help this afternoon with our new baby, and I might have a chance to go on. I just pinged everybody, and so many people got back to me. I was just like, well, let's do more of a roundtable show, which can be fun too. Anyway, thanks everyone who's been here today. I appreciate it. And I'll just Anshul, what do you got going on coming up?
Nothing too much, but just 'cause school's like been pretty crazy, so kind of taking a break. So I'll probably really be closer back to when we actually play the Cardinals. But yeah, guys, I have been doing the play-by-plays on my channels every week during the game, so definitely look forward to that. And then I'm sure
live streams, game
Yeah.
streams. Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, I'll keep an eye on a week from Sunday then for the Cards game. For me, I've got Pedro, Pete Burge, who is Niners DNA from Australia, Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific. Got Ryan from No Border Sports. We do No BS TED Tuesdays at 3:30, and then Wednesdays is Aaron from 49ers First Takes. We do First and TED Wednesdays 3:30 p.m. and then a week from today, hopefully Bash will be home by then from the game. Where in the world is Bash?
I mean, if he ain't by then, yeah, we definitely have to be concerned.
We'll have to start putting them on milk cartons. But yeah, we do Ball with Bash and Ted Fridays at 3 p.m. But thanks everybody. I'll just say peace and go Niners.
Go Niners.